Hey everyone, and welcome to e-commerce psychology. Today we are diving into something that is super fascinating, at least to me. I think it's going to be fascinating to you too.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking all about this idea of loss aversion
Oh,
and how
yes.
this really can make or break your online sales.
Mhm.
So, I think everyone has felt this before, but you ever notice how like a limited time offer or last chance to buy message just really gets you going?
Oh,
Like it
yeah.
just lights a fire under you to buy
That's
something?
sore, absolutely. That urgency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Urgency is the word I was looking for. So that's what we're diving into today, why those messages work, and more importantly, how can we use this knowledge ethically and effectively to boost our own e-commerce game, right?
Yeah, that's the big question. How do we make sure that we're using this powerful principle responsibly and actually getting the results we want without, being manipulative or anything like that? It's a fine line,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something that, understanding the psychology behind it can really give you an edge.
Yeah. And this is something that I think is really powerful because it's not just a marketing thing.
Hmm.
It's like psychology in general.
Right, exactly. It's a fundamental part of human behavior. It's how our brains are wired.
Yeah.
This isn't just some marketing gimmick.
Totally, yeah.
It's something that's ingrained, like deep down.
So let's break it down, right? Like we get it. We all hate to lose things. But what is the psychology behind that? What's actually happening in our brains when we see these warnings that say like only 2 items left?
Okay, so at its core, loss aversion is this principle that the pain of losing something is way stronger than the pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
Right.
So, think about it this way. Imagine you lose a $50 bill. Ugh, that feeling sucks, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine finding a $50 bill on the street. Okay, cool. That's nice, right?
Yeah.
But chances are that feeling of loss when you lost that $50 is going to hit you way harder.
Absolutely. Every time.
Right. And that's loss aversion at play.
Okay. So it's like losing money always feels worse than finding money. Is there like science behind that?
Oh, there's so much science.
Or are we all just kind of dramatic about this?
No, there's actual research. I mean, we're talking Nobel Prize winning research here. So Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, they're like the rock stars of behavioral economics.
Okay.
And they demonstrated through their prospect theory that losses loom larger than gains, often by like a factor of 2. Like it's twice as powerful, that feeling of loss.
Oh, wow.
And they even pinpointed specific brain regions that light up when we experience this potential loss, like the amygdala, our emotional control center,
Hmm.
and the prefrontal cortex, which is all about like rational decision making. So there's a lot going on up there.
Wait, so our brains actually respond differently to losing something versus gaining something?
Yes,
No.
exactly. Like completely different neural pathways are activated.
That's so wild.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
When we face a potential loss, those emotional centers, they just light up like rapidly and intensely, sending out this like warning signal before our rational brain can even like weigh in. It's like our emotional brain is slamming on the brakes before our logical brain can even figure out what's going on.
So it's no wonder we see these last chance messages and we just like instantly have to buy. Our brain is like, got to avoid that potential loss, even if it's something we don't need.
That's exactly it. We're hardwired to avoid loss.
Okay.
And this bias isn't just random, it goes way back. Think about our ancestors. The ones who focused on avoiding losses, like scarce food or resources.
Right.
They were the ones who survived,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They passed on their genes.
Survival of the fittest.
Exactly. And so we've inherited this like deep-seated need to prioritize avoiding losses, even if it's just, a perceived loss of a good deal online.
It's so crazy how like, back in the day, you had to like actually avoid real loss.
Right, like life or death situation.
Like, or I'm not going to eat today kind of thing. And now it's just like, oh, there's a sale online.
Exactly. But our brains haven't quite caught up.
I know. It's so interesting. So this is making me rethink all of the impulse buys I've made because I'm like, oh, it's a flash sale or a limited time offer. And my brain is like on autopilot, just dodging that potential loss. But how does this play out in the digital world specifically? Like with e-commerce, I'm guessing there's a lot of tactics based on this.
Oh, absolutely. Loss aversion is like the secret weapon of many successful e-commerce strategies.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Give me the juice. Give me the details.
Yeah.
What are these tactics that we're encountering every day that we might not realize?
Okay, so think about those travel websites that are like, Only 2 rooms left at this price.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Or those e-commerce stores that have those banners that are like flashing last chance to buy before the price increases.
Yeah.
Or even just like strategically placed pop-ups, you know?
Yeah. Or how about those countdown timers?
Yes. Countdown timers are like the visual embodiment of loss aversion.
Like a little time bomb, you know? We got to get it before it explodes.
Exactly. It just creates that sense of urgency. Like if you don't act now, you're going to miss out. And it's not just these flashy tactics, it's also about the language we use.
Okay, let's talk about that. The power of words.
Yes, the power of words. Because there's a huge difference between saying, get 20% off today,
Right.
and saying, don't miss out on 20% off today.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. It's subtle, but it's powerful.
It's the same discount, but one just feels like...
It creates that fear.
Right.
Like, don't miss out.
It's like that feeling when you were a kid and someone's like, hey, you want to trade? You're like, wait, what do I get?
Exactly. You don't want to miss out on a good deal.
Yeah.
And research consistently shows that this negative framing, highlighting what someone stands to lose, it tends to be way more effective than positive framing
Okay.
when it comes to motivating action.
So message framing is key.
Hmm.
But I'm guessing there are some, nuances to using this tactic effectively because there's like a fine line, right?
Right.
Where do we draw the line between persuasive messaging and, manipulation?
That is the million-dollar question. And that's where things get really interesting. We're going to dive into that right after a quick word from our sponsor.
This podcast is powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just land on the Shopify App Store now and test it for free.
All right, so let's talk about that ethical tightrope when it comes to loss aversion. Because we know it's powerful, but we don't want to be, crossing any lines or anything like that.
Right, of course.
So how do we leverage it responsibly? I think the key is to be authentic. You don't want to create false scarcity or like fake deadlines just to pressure people into buying. If you're running a limited time sale, make sure it truly is limited. And if you're claiming low stock, be transparent about your inventory levels.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier. It's like honesty builds trust.
Exactly.
And trust is crucial for any business to succeed.
Absolutely. And customers are smart. They can smell a phony deal a mile away.
For sure.
And once you break that trust, it's incredibly hard to win it back.
It's so true. It's so true.
So just always be upfront, and transparent about your offers and your promotions.
Okay, so honesty and transparency are at the top of our ethical checklist.
Yeah.
What are some other strategies that we can use to implement loss aversion effectively and ethically?
Well, one thing is to be specific. Instead of just using like vague phrases like, don't miss out,
Right.
Get granular, tell people exactly what they stand to lose and when they'll lose it. So, for example, saying something like, this 20% discount expires at midnight is going to be way more compelling than just a generic sale ends soon banner.
Right, because then it's like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to be losing and when I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
As opposed to sale ends soon, it's like, well, when? Tomorrow, next week, who knows?
Exactly. It's giving people that concrete information so they can make an informed decision.
Okay.
But you're still acknowledging that emotional pull of like, oh no, I might miss this.
Right, okay, so appealing to the heart and the head. I like that.
Yes, exactly. And you can even take this a step further by personalizing those loss-framed messages.
Okay, I love the idea of personalization.
So imagine you're browsing a website and you see a pop-up that says, don't lose the items in your cart. This discount on your favorite product category expires soon.
Okay, yes, that feels so much more like relevant and personal.
Right. It's like they're speaking directly to you.
Yeah, it's not just a general like sale ends soon.
Exactly. You're tapping into their specific interests and desires, making that potential loss feel much more real and tangible. And you can enhance that personal touch by using data. Remind people of items they've previously viewed or added to their wish list.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're being honest, transparent, specific, and then adding that extra layer of personalization. What other ethical loss aversion strategies should we be thinking about?
Well, another really effective technique is anchoring.
Okay.
And this involves like presenting the original price alongside the discounted price.
Yeah.
So you visually emphasize the savings and highlight that potential loss if they don't take advantage of the deal.
I'm like such a sucker for that every time. Like when I see that original price like slashed out or whatever,
Right.
and then the lower price highlighted, I'm just like, oh, what a deal.
It makes it so much more appealing, right?
Yeah, it's like I'd be crazy not to buy
Yes,
this.
exactly. And it's just a subtle way to frame that purchase decision in terms of potential loss.
I see. I see.
So it's really playing with those psychological levers.
Okay, this is all great information. I feel like I'm getting so much more confident about using loss aversion ethically and effectively.
Hmm.
But, we've been talking a lot about how to use loss aversion. But what about the flip side? Are there any, like, mistakes or pitfalls that we should be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely some common mistakes that people make that can sabotage their efforts and even damage their brand reputation. And I think one of the biggest ones is being too aggressive or too pushy with the messaging.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, too much of that, like, last chance, don't miss out, don't miss out, don't miss out, like, could backfire. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Nobody likes to feel pressured or manipulated.
Right.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between, creating a sense of urgency, but also respecting your customer's intelligence.
Totally. It's like we want to nudge them in the right direction, but we don't want to, like, shove them.
Exactly. And another common mistake is being inconsistent with your messaging.
Okay.
So if you're constantly running, limited time offers that never actually expire,
Right.
or if you're claiming low stock for like every product, your customers are going to start to see right through it.
Yeah. It comes back to that honesty and transparency, right? If you're not genuine, people will be able to tell.
Exactly. And once you lose their trust, it's so hard to get it back.
Okay, so avoid being overly aggressive, stay consistent with your messaging, and always prioritize honesty and transparency.
Got it.
Mhm. Any other loss aversion no-nos we should add to our list?
Yeah. I think a really important one is don't forget to focus on the value you're providing. So while loss aversion can be a powerful motivator, it shouldn't be the only factor driving your marketing strategy.
So don't just rely on those fear tactics.
Exactly. You want to highlight the benefits, the unique features, the reasons why people should genuinely want your products, not just because they're afraid of missing out on a deal.
Right, it's like, what is the value? It's got to be both.
Exactly. You want people to be excited about the opportunity, not just feeling pressured.
I see, okay. So we've been talking a lot about this in the context of e-commerce. But does this bias influence decisions in other areas of life as well?
That's a really interesting question. And the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
Loss aversion is way more pervasive than we realize. It's subtly shaping our choices in countless ways, often without us even being aware of it.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me more. Give me all the juicy details. Like, where does this show up in my life? Besides just like online shopping, obviously.
Okay, so let's think about relationships, for example. How many times do we cling to relationships that are no longer serving us?
Ooh, so many times.
Not because we're genuinely happy, but because we're terrified of that loss.
Right.
The upheaval that ending it would bring.
Or even like a job, right?
Yes.
Like you're staying in a job that you hate because you don't want to start over or maybe lose stability and all that.
Exactly. And it can even influence something as simple as choosing what to eat for dinner.
Okay.
We might order the same dish we always get, not because it's our favorite, but because we're afraid of that potential disappointment. Like, what if I try something new and I don't like it?
Oh my gosh, it's so true. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's like this invisible force that is just like guiding all of our choices.
Right.
And kind of pushing us to just stay with what's familiar, what's safe, even when there might be something better out there.
Exactly. It's that fear of the unknown.
Okay, so knowing this, how can we use this knowledge to our advantage?
Yeah.
Like, how can we overcome this bias?
That's the big question, right? And that's what we're going to dive into right after a quick break.
This podcast is powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just land on the Shopify App Store now and test it for free.
Okay, so we've established that loss aversion is like this sneaky little psychological gremlin that affects everything from our online shopping carts to, some of our biggest life choices.
Right.
But here's the good news. Awareness is the first step. to breaking free.
Okay, love that. I'm all about like turning knowledge into power. So how do we outsmart our own brains and avoid those loss aversion traps?
Well, I think it starts with reframing our thinking. So instead of fixating on what we might lose, let's flip the script and focus on the potential gains.
Okay, I love that.
So that job that we're so hesitant to leave,
Right?
what opportunities for growth and fulfillment might we be missing out on?
Totally.
That new dish we're too afraid to try, it could become our new favorite.
I like that. It's like shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Exactly.
Instead of just seeing limitations and
Yeah.
potential loss everywhere, we start to see those possibilities and potential gains.
Yes, and another helpful strategy is to quantify the potential losses.
Yeah.
Often, when we put things into concrete terms, those fears just start to seem less daunting.
Okay.
So let's say you're hesitant to invest in a new marketing strategy because you're worried about the upfront cost.
Right.
But what if you actually calculated the potential return on that investment? Suddenly, that initial cost might seem less risky.
That's a great point. It's like weighing the potential loss against the potential gain.
Exactly.
And sometimes when we just like do the math, that fear of loss really does start to like lose its grip.
Yes. And sometimes it's also helpful to seek out different perspectives. Talk to people who've made similar decisions, get their insights, hear about their experiences. Often hearing about other people's successes can help us overcome our own fears and take that leap of faith.
It's so true. It's like that saying, fear is a liar.
Yes.
We often build up these potential losses in our minds, and they just seem so much bigger and scarier than they actually are.
That's so true. And finally, I think it's important to remember that not all losses are created equal. Some losses are just inevitable.
Right.
We can't win every deal.
Yeah.
We can't get every promotion. We can't have every relationship work out exactly as we planned.
So it's about, choosing our battles and accepting that sometimes letting go is the best way to move forward.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes those perceived losses can even lead to unexpected gains.
Oh, interesting.
That job we didn't get, it might open the door to an even better opportunity.
Okay.
That relationship that ended, it might clear the path for a more fulfilling connection. So sometimes those things that we perceive as losses are actually blessings in disguise.
I love that. This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for understanding not only my customers' behavior, but my own decision-making process.
And that's the beauty of psychology, right? It's about
Yeah.
understanding ourselves and the world around us on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's so true.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into loss aversion, I want to leave you with this final thought. Don't let the fear of loss hold you back from pursuing your goals, taking risks, and creating a life that's filled with joy and abundance.
Beautifully said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this episode of E-Commerce Psychology. We'll see you next time. This podcast is powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just land on the Shopify App Store now and test it for free.